On this episode of the Mad Rush podcast.
So if you have that one phone call, you have that walk, even if it's only once every few months and you're not getting together as much as you would like to, make that time really count. Ask the follow-up questions. Don't just get caught up in the same catch-up loop. How are the kids? How's work? It needs to be balanced over time, but it doesn't need to be balanced within every single conversation. And it's okay to ask follow-up questions. And asking follow-up questions, even to your close friends, will bring a closeness because you feel closer to somebody who shows curiosity about you.
Welcome to the Mad Rush podcast. I'm Trisha Addicks, the original sorority rush consultant. While the stories I have to share are nothing short of astonishing, this podcast goes beyond the wild client tales and sorority life. I'll be engaging with fascinating guests from both within and outside the Greek world, uncovering the surprising connections that bind us all together. Join me for a journey that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. Welcome to Mad Rush. So I always say this, I'm super excited, but I'm really excited about this podcast episode in particular because I feel, or I know that today's guest, Nina Badzin, is basically a friendship expert. And I think that if you listen to this podcast, you know that finding your people, maintaining friends, it's everything. And so thank you for being here, Nina. I also want to mention that Nina has a very great podcast, Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendship. So I'm just super grateful that you're here on mine and talking about this really important, cool thing.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about it too.
So you are based, where are you?
Minneapolis. Totally different than a lot of your guests. I think you've had, I know you have guests from everywhere, but I do hear a lot of Southern accents. You're going to get a Midwest accent from me because I'm from Chicago and I moved here and I went to college in St. Louis and I moved to Minneapolis. My husband's from here. We met when I was a senior in college and he was in graduate school. So just very Midwestern. I'm very Midwestern.
So do you know Kate or do you know of Katie Keough?
No.
She's a comedian. She was a TV host for years. She's been on my podcast a couple times, but she's a Midwest mom and her take on like Rush, her daughter's at TCU and her in the South, it's very funny.
Oh, I'm going to check that out. Is her handle Midwest Mom? Something like that?
It may be.
Okay, I'll look that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. But anyway, so I'm excited to have you, like I said. And so talk to me a little bit about your background. I clearly now know that you met your husband when you were a senior in college.
Yes. Okay, so I am a writer and I like to make that clear because people confuse me sometimes for a therapist or like a coach, and I really don't do that. I'm not a one-on-one person. I am a writer who has been writing about friendship for over a decade, but I've actually written on other beats for a long time too. I had a parenting beat for a long time. And
Wait, what do you mean by a beat? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry, that's like a writer lingo. That's a good question. So like a freelance writer, somebody who writes on all kinds of topics, oftentimes will land in one area for a while. So you might be a travel writer, right? You might be somebody who covers the medical industry and writes about all kinds of science and medicine, but that person probably wouldn't also write about travel. And sometimes you end up in a certain area because it's what you studied in college or something, but sometimes it's just a level of interest. And I was actually a political science and Spanish major, and I loved writing always. I wanted to be a writer, but it just felt like you couldn't go to a school. I went to a private school. It's expensive. It felt like you couldn't just go to a school like that and come out and have such a low-paying job. Meanwhile, because I loved literature and writing so much, I still ended up in not a very high-paying job. I was an English teacher, a high school English teacher, because I wanted to be around literature and writing. And I had to go get a master's in education for that because I didn't have my teaching license. I had to get my teaching license. I did that when I moved to Minnesota. And I taught for some time until I had kids. And spoiler alert, I had 4 kids by the end of all this, but I had one kid, then two kids. I stopped teaching, and I would just cry to my husband and say, I should have been a writer. I should have been, that's what I wanted to do. And he was like, okay, be a writer. I was already staying home with the kids, so nobody was depending on my salary at that point. So his take, which I think is great and actually very supportive, was, okay, let's do it. Be a writer. And at that time, I started with fiction. And that's what I thought being a writer had to be, even though nonfiction I was always much better at. And I still teach my kids today and tell them that, my own children, being a good writer is your key to everything. You can write yourself into a good grade in your psychology class, into your history class, even in your science class. You have to know math. Okay, you're out of luck. But for most classes, especially in college, you have to be able to write. So I'm a good nonfiction writer, but I loved literature and fiction. I was like, oh, I want to be a novelist. And just to give you a sense of time, because I actually dislike when people tell me their story without years, because it's hard to know technology-wise what we're talking about. My second child was born in 2006. 2006. So this is really pre-Facebook. This is pre even sophisticated smartphones like we had. I think I had a BlackBerry at that time. So when I was writing and trying to write fiction, I'm talking about whole books, sitting for hours and hours by myself in my house when the babies were sleeping and that kind of thing. And the first book I wrote was called The Friends of Ivy Stein. And it was about three women who were all best friends with this character, Ivy. Ivy wasn't really in the book. She was more referred to. Each of these friends had been dumped by Ivy at some point.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was a great idea. I was very into friendship even back then. Ivy had dropped each one of them at a different time. And those three, all distraught by this friendship breakup, kind of find each other. I almost got an agent with it. I sent it out to a bunch of agents, and one agent really liked one of the storylines the most. And she's like, if you could write the book based on this storyline, like, let's do it. I think we can find an editor for it and, at a publishing house. So I'm pregnant with my next child, number 3. I write this whole book. It takes me another year. And I'm pretty much have the kid, and this agent who I never signed with. This is advice for anyone. Do not do that. You do not write a whole book for an agent who hasn't signed you. That's a terrible thing I don't know what I was thinking. And I wrote that whole book again. Now, some of these characters have been with me now for years. And she was like, it's still not where it needs to be. I was so tired of these characters by then. And a good friend of mine from college, I went to Washington University in St. Louis. I didn't mention that. So we call it WashU in that world. So a good friend of mine from WashU had started at the time a growing blog called Scary Mommy, which you might have heard of.
Yes.
Your listeners plenty will have heard of it. So now we're in about the year 2009, 2010. And she was an early blogger. She was an early person with that voice of being really honest about mothering life. And I still consider myself a literary writer. I had turned that original book into a lot of different short stories. I got them in literary magazine. I got nominated for literary prizes. So I'm like, ooh, I'm a literary writer. I don't want to blog. I would never do that. Just for fun, I wrote a guest post for her. And within an hour, it had like 100 comments. That's not because I wrote anything special. That's because she had a huge audience. And I was like, wait a second. This is a lot more fun than having a story in a literary magazine that will never see the light of day, that nobody reads. And I went from, I don't want to blog, to I want to blog yesterday. So I started my own website, and I never could come up with a catchy name or even a topic. So back to the idea of writing in a beat. So Jill's beat, Jill Smokler founded Scary Mommy. Jill's beat was motherhood and like the honest, raw parts of motherhood. And that's why she called it Scary Mommy. Well, she had a whole other story why she called it that, but that's what it ended up being. Mine was always just ninabadzin.com. I couldn't come up with anything because I couldn't focus on a topic. I wrote a lot about writing, like writing advice and getting your work out there. And I wrote a lot about parenting too, and other things, books. A lot of people come to my site still to this day for book reviews and things like that. I'm like an English nerd. Like that's the kind of person I am and was. Eventually, I had a parenting column. I had another kid, number 4. That was the end. That's the end of the kids. But after a couple years of that, my kids started getting a little older. So now we're in about 2014. And my oldest was about 10. And I had written an essay that I also performed in a show called Listen to Your Mother. And it was about how he completely bombed his piano recital. It was really more about me as the mom trying not to run up there and help him. So it was like a comedy piece. And it was funny. I thought it was funny. And a friend came to pick me up for a walk, and she said to my son, "Oh, Sam, I heard your mom did this funny essay. I listened to her talk about your piano recital." And he looked at me and he's like, "You wrote about my piano recital?" And I'm like, not only did I write about it, I performed it in front of 700 people. So that was kind of the end of the parenting beat.
Yeah.
Somebody I knew at the time was starting a website for midlife women. And I was like entering midlife-ish age at that time. And they were focusing at the time on friendship. It was all about friendship. And she's like, "We need a friendship advice columnist." I'd written other freelance pieces about friendship at this time. And I'd written other advice columns. I did a baby name advice column for a website. I did a advice column about how to use Twitter for writers. This was back like a while ago. So I loved that advice voice. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not a therapist. So back to that. I shouldn't do that. That doesn't feel right. And she's like, "No, we'll just make that the thing. You're just a regular person with a bizarre, which I do have, obsession with this topic." That was 10 years ago. So I have been answering anonymous questions about friendship for 10 years and then podcasting about it for 4, because I started that podcast in 2021 when really everyone was starting a podcast, and I really took to it. I like the podcast format a lot. And I don't do so much advice on there. It's more kind of like you have discussions about friendship in my case. And it's been 4 years going strong at Dear Nina, conversations about friendship.
That is so cool. And there's so many, like, I heard a recent, because I tend to repeat words on this podcast and it gets a little old, I'm sure. Synergy. So I was an English major because all I wanted to do was write. Growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write, and I thought I was going to be Louis Grizzard, who I talked about him recently. Do you know who Louis Grizzard is?
No.
So Louis Grizzard was a Southern writer. He worked for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and then he was very funny, but super Southern. And like one of the titles of his books is "Don't Bend Over in the Garden, Granny, Them Taters Got Eyes."
That's a great title.
Yeah. He was a very Southern guy, Southern writer, and I've talked about him a lot. But he was my inspiration growing up. I was like, I want to be a Southern writer. Well, there were 2 problems with that. One, I don't consider myself, I live in the South, but I was from North Carolina. That's very different than the bowels of Georgia, which is where he was coming from. And I was also imitating him. It wasn't authentic to me. But then I started working. So I was an English major, started working at the Atlanta Journal, but I couldn't get in on the writing side. So I worked in classified ads. So no, that didn't do anything for me. So, it's taken me however many years, 35 years to write a book, but
you did it.
We're there now. But yeah, that's very symbiotic. But I have a question for you. Do you have a favorite book? I know it's hard. It's a hard question to ask.
It's so hard. When you were talking about the writer you admire so much, I was thinking of David Sedaris. I love his work. And when you said about imitating, I know exactly what you mean. Now, that's nonfiction. It's funny. I'm really drawn to nonfiction, and yet I still thought of myself, I was going to be a novelist. I've really given that up. But I like novels too, but I read a lot more nonfiction. And David Sedaris is one of the few people who I've read everything he's ever written. I don't usually dedicate myself to an author that way. So I would say he is a favorite. I do like humor. And when I was getting those short stories published back in 2010, 2011, I hadn't thought about it until you said that about imitating. That is so not me writing. That is me taking on the, short story air and the short story voice of other people who were writing short stories. But I felt like I was faking it.
Right.
Again, it's just about knowing how to move your style around. That's just a writing skill, but it wasn't natural. I don't think I enjoyed it. I was forcing it.
Yeah. And forcing it never works. That I talk about that a lot too. Just business wise, I'll have people who want to force their way into a certain sorority or whatever. And I'm like, it's not going to work. If you do happen to get in, then you're still not going to find your people.
Oh, that's right.
So speaking of find your people, you're here because you are a friendship expert. So let's talk about friendships. I woke up this morning and I had 2 texts in a group text from my sophomore year at Georgia. Our group text is very consistent. But so what do you think or know, because you are the expert, maintaining friendships? What do you think are the important things to do to maintain friendships for a long time? I know you've done a podcast or a zillion on this, but
Yeah.
share with my audience, please.
So one thing that is not fun or popular and no one likes to hear it, but scheduling is essential. You are not going to maintain a friendship only through text, although texts are good. I am not here to bash technology because without it, it would really be hard to maintain. It's just that it's not enough. And you may even have to schedule the phone call. So there's long distance. We could talk about long distance friendships and in person, but it's like the same skills apply to both, which is scheduling. I have a phone call scheduled with a close friend who lives in town in a couple of days at 8:45 in the morning. It's not what either of us really want to do. We would much prefer to walk at least or get coffee, but she's in a newer job. Her hours are nuts. We both have 4 kids, actually. So between us, there's like 8 children, even though both of us have some away now. But still, I mean, it's just not always possible to get together. But we don't give up on the friendship. We schedule a call. And a call, even a 30-minute call, counts, I think, this is not a scientific number, I'm just talking common sense, for thousands of texts because it's immediate. You have to respond to somebody immediately as opposed to when it's convenient for you. You have to find a time. And that's true about getting together as well. You have to actually have a give and take. A lot of the texting, I do a lot of voice memos too, but the truth is texting and voice memos, they're really on your time. Better than nothing, but it's not as good as a live give and take, whether that's on the phone or in person. And the reason I say it's unpopular too, the scheduling piece is unpopular because that sounds so uninspiring, but that's just life. But also the phone. I think we have to stop bashing phone calls. There's so many memes out there about, people who really get you will know that you would never answer the phone. I mean, they're said with more humorous takes than that. There's a lot of stuff about dreading the phone. And it's like, ha, 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 that's so funny, except now you've only ever texted someone for the past 15 years. And that's your plan for the next 20 some years. Not a good plan. Have to be willing to stop what you're doing and talk to people.
I have a friend who just texted me yesterday. We did talk on the phone. And her daughter was asked out. Her daughter's a young professional living somewhere else. And the guy, he was 28, asked her out on the phone. And the girl was blown away. It had never happened to her in 28 years that she had been asked out any other way but text. And I was like, wow. And I was super shocked that was a thing. But 2, it really made her feel connected to him. I mean, she likes him a lot because of that, or I'm sure there are other things, and they've been out a few times, but I was kind of blown away by how much of an impact that had. So I imagine that of course I believe you regardless, but that how much of an impact that has on a friendship is the actual talking.
Real connection. People really push back on this. And when I do stuff on TikTok about phone calls, and it's usually younger people, and they kind of yell at me that I'm out of touch, and that they talk about boundaries and how that it's kind of against protecting your boundaries to call someone. They find it rude. It's like a really generational thing. They feel it's rude to call someone without texting first to say you're going to call. And I'm like, isn't that what voicemail is for? Or just, you can text them after and say, hey, tried to call you, call me back when you can. I know no one really listens to voicemail. I barely listen to voicemail either. If I reach someone and they don't answer, or if I call someone and they don't answer, I might text them after and say, call me when you can, because I know we see text. But this idea that you have to text someone first before you call, it's like, don't answer. That's okay. You don't have to pick up the phone, but I don't have to warn you that I'm calling. To me, that makes no sense.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I do feel like, now that you're saying it, that I do feel like I kind of have to warn people that I'm going to call versus just picking up the phone and calling. That's interesting. So when you say schedule, I have a lot more questions that don't have to do with this, but so when you scheduled with your friend, how did you schedule that? Do you send a calendar invite or?
That's a good question. We didn't start by doing that. We were hoping to get together. So we were texting, when are you free? And we were really meant to a walk. Once we realized that there was going to be nothing in the month of November or even last part of October where we could find a time where we could both walk, one of us said, and we've done this before. It's my friend Louise. I have no problem saying her name. Louise and I.
Oh, that's my middle name.
Oh, it is. It's such a great name. And she's my only friend named Louise. It's like a more unique name, actually. So once we realized that was the case, usually she's the one who says it. She's like, well, how about a phone call? And it's like, again, it's not the first choice. And yeah, then back and forth again with when does it work? This is all over text. She sometimes will send a calendar invite. I don't think you have to do that, but you can just make sure you both put it in your calendar. But it is in my calendar with a 5-minute alert for myself to remember, oh, now I could be on a walk. It might be a good time for me to walk. So I'll put in my earpods and we'll have our call. She might be in the car on the way to work or something. Fine. So we'll connect, each doing what we need to be doing.
And y'all listening, she's now said connect twice. That's my buzzword. Like I say, I always say, if you're watching Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen, and he has the drink if you're 21 or over and you drink, and that's on this podcast because it's all about connections and feeling connections and connecting. Yeah. So that the scheduling thing is I'm showing my age, but I always show my age. I'm on the struggle bus a little bit with the trying to juggle and schedule via text and, my team, my agents and all that stuff. It's a lot trying to schedule. So that's why I was curious how you do it.
It's a lot, but you can see if you don't do it, it won't happen.
Right. Absolutely. That makes
Another
sense.
Scheduling trick, I do personally with friends and suggest to other people is to schedule the next thing while you're there. So I play Mahjong with like several different kinds of groups. I have several, and none of them are like regular necessarily, but we'll try to schedule the next one while we're there. Because while all 4 of us or 5 of us, whoever many came, are there, so much easier to sit there and just take the 5 minutes. I mean, it will take us full 5 minutes for everyone to go through their calendar and do it than the days of texting. People think texting's faster. Actually, a lot of times it takes a lot more time to sit there and stop what you're doing, go through your calendar. No, it's like everyone right here, right now, just get your calendar out, look 6 weeks from now, when is everyone free? And we just find that 1 hour that everybody's free and we schedule it right there.
Okay, 2 things are concerning about that. One, I've heard Mahjong takes a lot longer, not concerning, but a lot longer than an hour.
Well, okay, we'll do an hour and a half, but we schedule it for that. You're right. An hour is really not quite enough time.
I've never played it, so I don't know.
I think an hour, it could be a little short, but an hour and a half is plenty. And you could play longer. People play like all day, but none of us has all day usually. So we kind of schedule it for an hour and a half.
And then you said 4 or 5 people. Does Mahjong, you can only play with 4, right? Or am I wrong?
You could play with 4 or 3. You can even play with 2. I've learned how to play with 2. I taught my son how to play with 2, which is really fun. Hard. 2 is hard. You can also play with 3. If you have 5, then that person just sits out until the game ends. A game doesn't last an hour and a half. A game could be 20 minutes, and then that person comes in.
I was invited to a Mahjong night next week, and I was like, I don't play Mahjong, but I really want to see you guys. And they're all into Mahjong, so I'm going as an observer.
So there's periods of time during the game when they'll chat with you, and then there'll be like a period of time when they just need to focus, and then you'll just catch up on your emails and stuff. You'll just bring your phone, and you can like catch up on stuff for the 20 minutes they need to be quiet. Not even 20, less than 20, and it'll be fun. It's still fun to do if you don't play. I mean, not as fun as playing. You should learn. I think you would like it.
I think I would too, but right now in this season of my life, I don't have the bandwidth, but because of this season of my life, which is another reason I was so excited to have you on here for some advice, because I am at an age where most of my friends through whatever, they're all playing Mahjong. And so that's what they're doing. I am working on a lot of projects that don't have anything to do with social stuff. So I'm feeling very disconnected from my friends right now because my life is completely different than theirs. I don't know anybody else that's going through this, and it's a unique thing for me. And it's all good except for that part. Like I feel like I'm missing the connections.
That's important. I think just knowing that you're feeling that is important. I would even say that to your friends. I like that. Now I'm just like literally giving you advice person to person here.
Well, that's what I want. Yeah.
I think it's important to tell your friends how you're feeling. Nobody's a mind reader. And I would really just say, okay, the book's coming out. When exactly is your book coming out?
May 12th. Pre-orders are live now. I'm just
Everyone order the book. But that's going to ramp up. And I would be vulnerable, because vulnerability is just a huge piece of connection, right? And even if these are friends you've had a very long time, I would say, I'm so excited about this book. I've worked so hard for this. It's a long time coming. And yet I do feel like I'm missing out, and I miss you guys, and you're playing Mahjong. Can we schedule some walks? Can we, like, you need to exercise. Like, you have to, like, I know. So could it be a scheduled phone call? Could it be a scheduled walk with people? Is there ways that they can be part of the book excitement that would feel not like too big of an ask? Because I will tell you, I have a lot of people I know who write books, and whether we're friends or just online acquaintances and things, I don't like that cold email I get when it's like, do you want to be part of my launch team? Like, nobody's dying to be part of. And did you do that?
No.
Okay.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh, that's a thing that PR people are having their authors do. And like, nobody's dying to be part of anybody's launch team. Like, that's not a thing. But if there's one event in town that they could help plan or something, like something that to bring them into it. Yeah,
I just want them to come.
Yeah, but you have to say that.
Yeah, I hired someone to do my events for that reason, because I have had some people reach out to me and, oh, I'll do this for you, but I don't. I feel like my friends are supporting me in a lot of ways that is maybe not. I don't know. I feel like that might be too much of an ask, because, they're liking my stuff and they're, whatever.
Somebody once said to me, you really talk about yourself a lot on social media. Like, she found it very off-putting. And she's like, why do you always talk about your podcast? Or before that, why do you always talk about your writing? And who else is going to? Do I have some magical angel like sitting around excited to promote my work? Like, no, it starts with us. And then the people in our lives who are kind enough to share it, great. But like you said, I would not depend on friends to do that. You have to find your authentic audience, which I know you have done. And don't let anybody make you feel like you shouldn't be the very first person so proud of your work and promoting your work. It has to start with us, because if not us, who?
That's great advice. And I needed to hear that for sure, because I'm struggling a little bit with that, because I am super excited and proud, and it's really a once in a lifetime thing, but it's also something that I'm not very comfortable talking about. So that I like to hear that. Thank you.
It sounds like you have a really good and healthy attitude about it, because people can only like your stuff so much. It starts to get, right? I know, believe me, I feel that too as a podcaster talking about friendship. Like, I try to release my friends as much as possible, and I will just tell them what I'm thinking, which is, I want to be able to talk about the podcast without you feeling pressured to listen to it. Like, just like anyone's job, I want to be able to say, this is who I'm talking to this week. I'm so excited. I'm not trying to say you have to listen to it. I just prepping really a little bit with you. I just want to. So yeah, you saying to your friends, it would mean so much if you show up. That's great. They don't need they don't need to plan anything. I was just trying to help you find more things to do with them.
No, that's amazing. No, I didn't even really know that was a thing, because I'm so protective. We talked about our kids, and we talked about, like, I don't want my kids to feel obligated to listen to my podcast, and I don't want my friends to. In the beginning, I literally had t-shirts made up because we had a girls' trip, and this was before the book and everything. And I just started my podcast, and they kept asking me questions about what I was doing, like about my business and I was like, if y'all would listen to and I did not use this word, but I was like, if you just listen to the freaking podcast, then we wouldn't have to talk about me all the time. And so then I had t-shirts made up, but I actually used bad cuss word instead of freaking. So I had t-shirts made up, just listen to the freaking podcast. So in the beginning, I wanted my friends to listen to the podcast instead of asking me, because I got sick of talking about myself and sick of talking about what was going on in my life, because I just really wanted to connect on a level that they were interested in. And ain't nobody interested in talking about me all the time. They're just not.
Well, I think a little bit is okay. It's like we have to be comfortable talking about our work. And then in terms of maintaining friendships, this sort of leads to another tip I would love to give you and your listeners, which is continuing to ask questions. It's like we're talking about here, like how much to talk about ourselves, how much to ask other people. The truth is, studies show, and there's a Harvard professor, a current professor in Harvard Business School, Allison Wood Brooks, has a book out that came out in January of 2025 called Talk. And there's TALK. Each one stands for something different about conversations. It's about the art of conversation. The A in Talk stands for asking questions. And the studies that she and her team did show that people ask way fewer questions than they think they ask. So like they observe people having conversations, they record it, and they would ask people, I don't know the exact numbers, I don't remember, but let's just say for conversation's sake that they asked, how many questions did you ask? And the average person said, 10, but they really only asked 2. I mean, there was a big discrepancy in what people thought they asked and what they actually asked. And it was a good lesson to just remember that people like to talk about themselves. They really do. It needs to be balanced over time, but it doesn't need to be balanced within every single conversation. And it's okay to ask follow-up questions, and asking follow-up questions, even to your close friends, will bring a closeness because you feel closer to somebody who shows curiosity about you. So you can't control whether someone asks you information, but you certainly can ask your friends questions, even close friends. So if you have that one phone call, you have that walk, even if it's only once every few months and you're not getting together as much as you would like to, make that time really count. Ask the follow-up questions. Don't just get caught up in the same catch-up loop. How are the kids? How's work? What trip did you take? But deeper than that, it could still be on those topics, but it's a trick. It's like a hack to go to a follow-up question. Like if you're talking about a trip, for example, it's like, well, what would you recommend most? Like if you were 3 things you would recommend about that place is a much more specific question than how was your trip?
Right. And that's great advice. And that is something I work on. So I do some confidence coaching for young women. And that is something that is an art. And it is something that really sets you apart. And again, don't have to in anything, but in Rush too, like if you are listening and you're engaged and you're asking questions and they're talking about themselves, that sets you apart. And that is something we work on really hard with our clients, because that is, I'm agreeing that is really an important thing, asking the questions. I just don't want people to ask me questions.
No, but you have to be willing to give information too. So the bigger issue people have is the resentment they feel that nobody has asked them questions. So, because like I said, you can control whether you ask people questions. You can't control people ask you. But I like to push people to offer information anyway. Like, don't sit around and wait for people to ask you. It would be wonderful if they would, but you can't control that. You could control the questions you ask, and you can control the information you give. And I don't wait for people to ask me about the podcast. I'd be waiting forever. I'll just offer it up. Oh, here's what I'm doing this week. And then people, they appreciate usually it's a topic people are interested in talking about. I'll just say, oh, and this is who I'm interviewing, or I'm going on a podcast. I've talked to 2 friends in the past 2 days. I'm going on a podcast where she's a consultant for Rush. And we talked, all of us have college age kids. We talked all about that. Like, but we wouldn't have had that like fun conversation if I hadn't just brought it up. I can't wait for people to say, like, Nina, who are you talking to this week? But I'm telling you, people feel, I get something we didn't say with the Dear Nina. The reason it's called that is this is for 10 years now, get anonymous letters.
I was about to ask you about that. It's so funny. I want to hear it. I want to hear some of the crazier ones.
Some of it, it's not so much that they're crazy, but it's this kind of thing. Like, nobody ever asks me any questions. So my friends don't know anything about me, or the people I call my friends, I feel like they don't know anything about me. Now, a lot of times they write to me anonymously, which I encourage because I don't want a constant one-on-one. I mean, I don't want to be in an email back and forth forever with somebody. So anonymous is good, and I'll use them in my newsletter. And what I'd like to be able to tell people, I wish I could say it to each person, I can't answer everybody, is, well, why are you waiting? That's not what friends do. Like, we're not testing our friends. We should not be testing our friends all the time. Because everybody does friendship differently, because we're all different people. Friendships are made between human beings, and every person is different. So where I might be really good at asking questions, somebody else maybe isn't. So, but they're perfectly happy to hear if you would just offer it up a little bit.
That's really good advice. And I had a friend one time. We're still pretty close, but she was so frustrated with me, and I had no idea. She was like, you're always asking me questions, but I don't feel like you're not giving me anything of you. So I was thinking, I wanted to I'm much better one-on-one than I am group, but I was thinking I was going deep with her, but she's like, but I don't feel like I'm going deep with you.
That was great feedback. So what a good friend that she felt that you could handle that.
So blunt. It's like,
we all need a friend like that. I mean, most people would do is they would, something that is called in the business quiet quitting. They would quiet quit that friendship, meaning, she would find her time with you not as satisfying. And so she would not answer back as quick. She wouldn't schedule as much. And I think it's really wonderful that she was willing to say, hey, I like this friendship, but I can't just be like interviewed. Like you need to put something in.
Quiet quitting. I feel like that is another word for ghosting.
Ghosting is a little different, but ghosting would be immediate. Like you text your friend and you never hear back from them.
Okay.
Quiet quitting is, it's what most people do when they are kind of ready to have some space with a person. It sounds so vicious, but the truth is there's no good way to end a friendship or to change the status of a friendship. There really isn't. What your friend did was give you the opportunity to have her not change the status of the friendship. Most people are really unable to be that direct, and a lot of people cannot handle that level of directness. So both of you should be commended for that. But that quiet quitting is sort of...
That's what I've done. Yeah, that's what I've done. I
haven't
ghosted anybody, but I just don't want confrontation, and I don't want to discuss it, whatever. I'm just like, okay, bye.
In an ideal world, you would be able to sit a good friend down, or someone who's been a good friend. Maybe they're not anymore. You want the status of the friendship to change. And what most therapists would tell you, and I've read every book on friendship there is by therapists, by regular people, the therapists are like, it's a kindness to sit someone down and explain why. And I totally get that. And I agree that in an ideal world that is true, but it's not realistic all the time, because I don't know, just because the friendship isn't working for you doesn't mean that person needs to change a bunch of things. It might just not be working for you. And I don't know that someone needs to hear all of our criticisms, and I don't know. It's every situation's different.
Yeah, you're bringing up so there's like there's actual advice on how to break up with a friend.
What happens is if somebody either ghosts you or does the quiet quitting thing, it does leave a lot of mystery in your mind, and it can be unkind to somebody. It can be an unkindness to somebody who has been a good friend for a certain period, a certain season of your life, and then all of a sudden you kind of slowly disappear or disappear all at once. It can be cruel. And yet, when I hear from people who are like, my friend's disappearing, I just want to know why. Do you want to know why? Like, you think you want to know why, but you're not necessarily going to get the truth. They probably are going to soften the truth to be kind. And so they feel it is kinder to just inch away. My point is, it's not really satisfying on any end.
But no, it's interesting that you use kind and cruel in the same description of a person. So that's an interesting take. So do you have like an anonymous question? When you say anonymous, how do they do that? Like, my email has my name on it.
So I have a form that it's through my website, and all I had to do was unclick the box, like me as the person who made the form. I just unclick the box where it says email address is required. So people really don't have to put their email address, and they don't have to go through the trouble, which you have to do with some advice columns, of making up some email address, like confirming this made up email address. People do that sometimes. They'll create a Gmail address that they can use for this kind of thing. What that means is sometimes I get a spam one that's literally like just gobbledygook. It's because like the spam filter, part of what helps your spam filter is that someone has to put their email address in. But I don't get that much spam. To me, it's worth it to have people be able to actually write from the heart and not worry that I'm going to track them down or know who they are. And I think only once did somebody write something that was clearly about me. And in 10 years, that's pretty good.
What do you mean? What do you mean they wrote something that was about?
So somebody once wrote in, she was not a good friend at all. I don't think a good friend would do that. It was somebody that I knew. Actually, it makes me think of sororities a little bit. There's the difference between, a friend and then just people in your community. I mean, in a sorority, it can be like that, right? Like, you can have a friend and you can have a sorority sister, and those aren't necessarily the same thing. You're just in community together. So somebody I knew from my community, and we were at an event together, and my youngest at the time, he's 14 almost now, so this is a long time ago. He was probably 5, and he was allergic to peanuts. And we were at something that had like a big dessert table at it. And so I was kind of like looking over her shoulder a little bit. I was keeping an eye on him. We were in a big room, and he was old enough to be able to wander around and grab stuff, but not quite old enough to know what's in everything. Maybe he was even 4. And so I was definitely looking over her shoulder and keeping an eye on him, but I didn't really say why, or I might have said why. I don't remember. But that night I got something in my inbox that was like, I talked to somebody today at an event who people think is really nice. And, a lot of people like her, but she was just looking over everywhere. There were other descriptors in there that was so clearly me. It was so.
How did you respond? Or did you respond?
I ended up.
See, I would so have to respond and just.
I responded in a way. I'm not sure I would do it the same way now. I did it nicely, to be honest. I emailed her as if that didn't happen, as if I didn't get this anonymous email. And I just said, I didn't want to, did I call her? I think I might have called her and said, hey, I'm feeling uneasy about, yesterday or today or whenever it was. And I know I was really distracted when we were talking. And I just want to let you know that my son is allergic to peanuts. And I was just keeping an eye on him. And I got the sense that you might have found that rude, but that's why. And she was like, oh, I'm so glad you called. Thank you so much. We really weren't good. We were barely acquaintances, but I'm not even sure why I'm telling you this story. It is not helpful to anyone. It's just part of an interesting thing about being someone who receives emails.
Anonymous. Yeah. I bet you I would get a lot of stuff if I was allowing anonymous stuff. Whew. I get enough comments on Instagram where their handle is there. I'm like,
Right. So you can only imagine what people would do anonymously. I'm lucky that it hasn't really been like that. But I do always, every time I get an email, I kind of like suck in my breath for a second and just brace myself that it might be someone who is offended by something I did or said.
Wow. I think that would be, I'm not just trying to flatter you, but I feel like that would be super unintentional on your part because you seem super intentional in all that you do. Well, I am really excited to dive into your podcast. I was super happy that you agreed to be on this one, but I think that you have some great advice and I am excited to learn about it. Fun fact, I had never listened to a podcast before I had a podcast.
Wow.
So I'm not really a podcast person, but I think that I'm going to be a podcast person dedicated to you.
Oh, I think it will help in the stage of life you're in, like this season of life where some of your friends are possibly like starting to travel more or do things like Mahjong, like you said, and you're coming out like at the top of your career. You are just like plowing ahead with this book and you have so many other things going on. That can be really hard when people are in different stages in a way. It's just like when someone has a kid and someone doesn't have a kid.
Right.
Someone's sick, someone's healthy. There's many different ways that we are in different ones, and you're in one now where you're in a really busy part of your career, but you don't want to lose those connections. You don't. So you gotta keep them up.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna listen, and I really appreciate you being here today. Where can my guests find you and get this fabulous advice from you on a weekly basis?
So again, the podcast is called Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendship, available on all the platforms and on YouTube on video, which is always awkward, but I do it. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I'm at Dear Nina Friendship. And finally, my newsletter where I answer those anonymous questions is at dearnina.substack.com.
Great. Thank you. One of my favorite conversations ever, and I feel like I learned a lot. And so thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Time Out with Trisha. Because can you really give advice if you don't speak about yourself in the third person? I don't think so. This is exactly how I speak to my clients. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. Now let's get into it. Okay, so that was a lot of really great advice about friendship. And y'all know that's what I'm trying to do, help you find your people. So right now, this stage of if you are a senior and you are planning to go through Rush, let's get some systems in place now so that you are not scrambling come May. So you may not know where you're going yet. Probably most of you don't, but start a spreadsheet. I can send you one if you email rushwithconfidence@yahoo.com we can send you our proprietary spreadsheet where you can organize who is going to write your recs. And you're not going to get those until May, but you don't want to be like, oh, wait, who offered to write me a rec for CAIO? And it also varies from school to school what the rec situation looks like. So getting all these systems in place, organized, start making a tally of or a list of things for your resume so that you don't forget something. Let's say you are volunteering on Saturdays just in the fall to make sandwiches for a shelter or something. Write it down because in a few months it's going to get crazy and you might forget that, and that's really important to have on your resume. So, systems in place, people. And that's it for Time Out with Trisha. We'll see you on another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Mad Rush Podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star review. For additional Rush tips, updates, and more, please follow me on Instagram at Rush with Confidence. If you would like to reach out to us or for more information, please email info@madrushpod.com. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry and Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Trisha Addicks.